What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, someone in America is about to lose everything to a wall of water? Not in a movie. Not in some distant future. Right now. Picture this: you're at summer camp, laughing with friends around a campfire. The sky looks normal. Maybe a few clouds. Then, in less than an hour, 12 inches of rain fall from the sky. That's a foot of water. In 60 minutes, the river beside your camp rises 10 feet in just 45 minutes. This isn't fiction. This is exactly what happened in Texas Hill Country just days ago. And it's happening everywhere. But here's what's truly terrifying: this is just the beginning. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why floods have become America's deadliest weather threat, why scientists say it's about to get catastrophically worse, and most importantly, what you can do right now to protect yourself and your family. Because the data I'm about to share will change how you think about rain forever. But first, let me tell you about the children who didn't make it home. On July 5, 2025, Camp Mystic in Texas was hosting its annual summer program. Kids were swimming, playing games, having the time of their lives. Then the sky opened up. In just hours, what started as a fun summer day became a nightmare that would claim the lives of 28 children and multiple counselors. The Guadalupe River, which had been a gentle stream that morning, turned into a raging torrent. Camp buildings were swept away like toys. Cars were tossed like leaves. And in the chaos, 28 young lives were lost. But here's the part that should terrify you: this wasn't an isolated incident. This was just the deadliest day in what's becoming America's new normal. The numbers are staggering. In Kerr County alone, 87 people died that day. Statewide, over 100 people lost their lives. And as I'm recording this, 161 people are still missing. Think about that for a second. 161 people. Gone. In a single day. From rain. But Texas isn't alone. Just weeks before, West Virginia faced a sudden downpour that killed 5 people in 30 minutes. In May, an atmospheric river dumped a foot of rain across the mid-Atlantic, triggering deadly flash floods from Virginia to Pennsylvania. Earlier this year, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Tennessee faced flooding that killed 18 people. And here's the kicker: according to the National Weather Service, floods now kill more than 125 Americans every year. That's more than tornadoes. More than hurricanes. More than lightning strikes. Flash floods have become America's #1 weather killer. And they're getting worse. But why? Why are floods suddenly everywhere? Why are they so much deadlier than they used to be? The answer lies in basic physics, and it's terrifying in its simplicity. When air gets warmer, it holds more water. For every degree Celsius the atmosphere warms, it can hold roughly 7% more moisture. That might not sound like much, but when you're talking about the entire sky, that's millions of gallons of extra water vapor just waiting to fall. And when it falls, it doesn't fall gently. It falls all at once, in what scientists call extreme precipitation events. These aren't your grandfather's rainstorms. These are atmospheric fire hoses pointed directly at the ground. Remember that 12 inches of rain in Texas? That's not rain. That's a wall of water falling from the sky. And it's becoming normal. But it gets worse. These storms are also slowing down. Climate change is disrupting atmospheric patterns, causing weather systems to stall over single locations instead of moving through quickly. So instead of getting an inch of rain spread over 3 hours, you get 6 inches in 1 hour. Instead of a moderate storm passing through, you get a meteorological monster that parks itself over your town and dumps everything it has. The result? Floods that would have been once-in-a-lifetime events are now happening every few years. Floods that would have been impossible are now inevitable. And the data proves it. NOAA reports that since 1980, the United States has experienced over 400 weather disasters that caused more than $1 billion in damage each. Of those, flood-related disasters are rising faster than any other type. Even more terrifying, 66% of what we used to call 100-year floods have occurred since the year 2000. These aren't 100-year events anymore. They're becoming everyday occurrences. Climate scientists are now predicting that by 2050, every region in America will experience at least 2 extreme flooding events annually. Not maybe. Not if we're unlucky. Definitely. But here's what really keeps me up at night: we're not prepared. You remember the Camp Mystic tragedy? There was no flash flood warning system in place. None. Despite being located right next to a river that had flooded before, there was no early warning system to alert counselors and campers when the water started rising. This isn't just a Texas problem. Across the country, our flood warning systems are decades behind the threat. The National Weather Service has faced budget cuts and staffing reductions that have crippled their ability to issue timely warnings. Local emergency systems are overwhelmed. And most people have no idea how to respond when flood warnings are issued. The result? Preventable deaths. Lots of them. But the human cost goes beyond the immediate fatalities. A recent study analyzing over 35 million death records found that large floods increased deaths from cardiovascular disease, infectious diseases, and injuries by up to 25%. Floods don't just kill people in the moment, they kill people for months and years afterward through destroyed infrastructure, contaminated water supplies, and the crushing stress of losing everything. And we're about to see a lot more of it. The latest research shows that climate change is making extreme precipitation events not just more frequent, but dramatically more intense. According to recent studies, future hurricanes are expected to be 37% wetter near their centers and 20% wetter up to 60 miles away. We're looking at an 80% increase in the frequency of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes, the most destructive ones. But you don't need a hurricane to die in a flood. Most flood deaths happen during what seem like ordinary rainstorms. People driving through what looks like a shallow puddle, only to discover it's actually a raging torrent that sweeps their car away. Most flood deaths happen in vehicles. Most flood deaths are completely preventable. Which brings me to the most important part of this video: what you can do right now to protect yourself and your family. First, understand that floods can happen anywhere. If you think you're safe because you don't live near a river, you're wrong. Urban flooding happens when storm drains can't handle the volume of water falling from the sky. Suburban flooding happens when the ground can't absorb water fast enough. Rural flooding happens when small creeks become raging rivers in minutes. Second, know your warning systems. Download weather apps that send push notifications. Sign up for local emergency alerts. Understand the difference between a flood watch and a flood warning. A watch means conditions are favorable for flooding. A warning means flooding is already happening or about to happen. Third, and this is critical, never, ever drive through flooded roads. I don't care how shallow it looks. I don't care how familiar you are with the road. I don't care if you're in a truck or SUV. 6 inches of moving water can knock you down. A foot of moving water can carry away a vehicle. 2 feet of moving water can carry away most cars and trucks. The National Weather Service has a simple rule: turn around, don't drown. It's not catchy. It's not clever. But it will save your life. Fourth, if you're in a flood-prone area, have an evacuation plan. Know multiple routes out of your neighborhood. Keep emergency supplies in your car and your home. Have a battery-powered radio, flashlights, and enough water and food for at least 72 hours. But personal preparedness isn't enough. We need systemic change. We need to fully fund the National Weather Service and FEMA. We need to invest in modern early warning systems. We need to build sponge cities, with green infrastructure that can absorb massive amounts of water, things like permeable concrete, green roofs, and restored wetlands. We need to stop building in floodplains. We need to elevate roads and reinforce bridges. We need to create long-term financing for climate resilience instead of just cleaning up after disasters. And yes, we need to address the root cause: climate change. We need to slash emissions to slow the warming that's making these floods inevitable. We need to invest in renewable energy. We need to reform our energy systems before the floods get even worse. Because make no mistake, they will get worse. The children who died at Camp Mystic weren't victims of a freak accident. They were victims of a predictable consequence of a warming world. The families destroyed by floods across America aren't just unlucky. They're early casualties of a climate crisis that's accelerating faster than our ability to adapt. But this isn't inevitable. We know what causes floods. We know what makes them deadly. We know how to predict them, prepare for them, and protect ourselves from them. What we often lack is the will to act. So here's what I want you to do right now. Don't wait. Don't assume this won't happen to you. Don't think someone else will solve this problem. Check your local flood risk. Download emergency apps. Make an evacuation plan. Stock emergency supplies. Learn the warning signs. And most importantly, take climate change seriously. Because the next time you see storm clouds gathering, I want you to remember the children at Camp Mystic. I want you to remember that floods are now America's deadliest weather threat. I want you to remember that 6 inches of moving water can kill you. And I want you to be prepared. The age of floods is here. The question isn't whether they'll come for your community. The question is whether you'll be ready when they do. Don't let the next flood tragedy include someone you love. The time to prepare is now. The time to act is now. Because when the water comes, it comes fast. And it shows no mercy. Stay safe. Stay prepared. And remember, in the age of floods, knowledge and action are our only defenses.